Good morning, world. Today I am going to address two issues that often come up. I've addressed them before in other videos, but I still get the question, and so I wanted to do a quick video just addressing those two things. The first one is the difference between depression and sadness. Well, one of the easiest ways to say it is that sadness can and often is a symptom of depression, meaning that people who are depressed often experience sadness. However, you can be sad and not be depressed. Sadness and depression. Sadness can last anywhere from maybe a few minutes to several days, depending on how bad things are. Once we start getting into weeks, then it's probably time to start looking more at depression. But sadness can last anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks. And even when you're looking at sadness, you have breaks. You're more likely to have breaks in sadness. Whereas you are sad right now, but your friends come over, you guys are hanging out, and you're actually okay. You're not feeling that sadness. Whereas depression, while you may try to put things in there to fill in the time with more positive activities, even during those positive activities, the person is still experiencing some symptoms of that depression. The sadness that's every day usually is a lower grade than what you experience during a depression. That sadness can be so debilitating that a person feeling just everyday sad can get up and do everything they need to do to go about their day, whatever they normally would do. But a person experiencing depression also has that lack of energy that drains them and can sometimes make the person unable to do their everyday activities. Physically, if you run a test, you may see that there's no actual physical reason that, this person can't get up and go to work. But when in that person's body, it doesn't feel that way. You may not see any broken bones or any reason that the person's muscles or the person's bones feel achy. But when they're experiencing that a certain level of depression, they may feel that physical pain, even though there's no actual medical reason to justify the pain. Usually, we can say a person experiencing sadness is often able to just snap out of it. They're able to get themselves doing certain things that help get rid of that sadness or replace that sadness with happier moments. Depression isn't like that. Depression is not something that you can just snap out of it, like people often say. You can't snap out of depression. You actually have to work through it. You actually have to deal with the symptoms and deal with the issues. Depression and sadness often have triggers, whereas the trigger for sadness may be a lot less pressing than what could lead to a depression. For example, you are at a friend's house and you decide, okay, it's time for me to go. Kids, let's get in the car. And the kids that were happy and excited about playing with other kids, now they're sad because they have to leave. But of course, by the time you get to the car, turn on a video, they're no longer sad. Versus, the child loses their first pet and that child can fall into a certain level of depression because as the sadness of losing the pet grows and becomes a bigger issue. And same thing goes with adults. Yeah, we might be sad when we're leaving our friends, but we get over it. But when you're experiencing depression after losing a close friend or losing a partner, you don't just suddenly go get ice cream and everything's okay. Depression has to be worked through. Sometimes there can be a medical reason that contributes to depression. There can be a chemical imbalance that can contribute to a person becoming depressed. And depression is also something that can run in families. For example, we often say that on the maternal side, if there is a history of depression on someone's maternal side, from someone's maternal family, then that person may be a little bit more susceptible than a person who does not have that history. So what that means is that when the triggers are presented, that person is at a higher risk than a person who does not have the history. It does not mean that the person with the higher risk will suddenly become depressed over everything, or it doesn't mean that the person who doesn't have the history will not become depressed over certain things. It just means, it gives us more reason to be careful and be watchful of certain things. So again, short way of saying it, sadness, it can be a symptom of depression, but it's not always a sign that there is depression going on. But when you're experiencing depression, one of your symptoms may be sadness, but there are also going to be several other ones that are present, including that draining of energy, that lack of sleep, or oversleeping, overeating or undereating, sleeping all the time or not sleeping at all, suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideations, and sometimes maybe even suicidal behaviors. Which brings me to the next one issue, which is suicide. Whenever it happens, one of the questions that's often asked is, why didn't someone do something? Or how come nobody knew? It's one of those things that people don't exactly advertise. No, while there are times, especially with a younger group, where you may find people threaten suicide as a way of getting their way, throwing a fit, or just getting attention. It's not usually, or how do I say this? Often, when a person has made the decision, they don't talk about it anymore. This is not to say that the child or the person who says that they're going to jump in or they're going to kill themselves, this does not in any way mean that when a person say they're going to do it, they're not going to do it. We take every single threat should be taken seriously, because some kids will be saying it as a way of getting attention, and others may say it as a way of reaching out or asking for help. So because we never and can never really know, we have to take every single one seriously. When a person has made that decision, oftentimes one of the things that happens is a person who has been down in the dumps, a person who has been weighed down by whatever issues have led them to make that decision, that person suddenly feels a level of relief. This doesn't mean that the issues are gone. It doesn't really mean that they have found a solution. It only means that, they have found what seems to be a way out of their present situation. It may not be the best, most effective way of dealing with the issue, but at that moment, that person has found a way out. And having found a way out of it, they feel a bit of relief. They are no longer weighed down because they know that once they carry out the plan, they will no longer have the difficulties that they're currently dealing with. So one of the signs can be that sudden snap, where the person was depressed for 2 weeks or depressed for 3 years, and suddenly that person is the life of the party. They are excited, or maybe they're not so much the life of the party, but their demeanor has changed. That feeling of being weighed down has vanished because, of course, they have now a plan that will help them get out from under that pressure. Another often noticed signs is the final arrangements. A lot of times once the person has made that decision, they start, getting their affairs together. Maybe they're putting together the paperwork so that when everything's done, people will be able to find, okay, this is what this is where this goes. Or giving away these prized possessions that they have always treasured, those collector's items that people weren't even allowed to look at, that those things that you could not touch, that they are suddenly giving away to people. And sometimes it's giving away of things that they actually need. For example, I may use my computer every day and it almost seems like I can't function without the computer, and out of the blue I get up and I give my computer to somebody who wanted it without talking to, and it's not because I'm planning or getting ready to buy another one. It's just I'm giving it away. So those are certain signs that could be noted. And of course, more bigger signs would be if you see someone actually making certain plans to help them carry out the action. If you get to that point where someone is getting ready to carry out a suicidal act, where you see them, okay, the person suddenly has a gun that they didn't have before and they've been talking about it, it's probably time to intervene. Again, people often have this idea that if you ask, you're putting the idea in somebody's head. No. You can't really put the thought in the person's head so deep that they're going to start idealizing and acting out on it just by asking them. But if you do ask, there's a better chance that you can begin a conversation that may lead to taking the idea out of somebody's head. So it's more, there's a lot more to gain by asking than there is to lose. The likelihood of putting the idea in somebody's head is not high enough that you would take the chance of not asking, of not intervening when someone actually has that kind of plan. And of course, if you do notice something, you ask the question. And if it appears that the person is contemplating it or has plans for it, if the person has plans or is ready to act, it's time to really do some acting to really get involved. Get them Baker acted, get them into a facility, get them the help that they need immediately to help them live long enough to find a better solution. And if the person is simply at the idealizing stage, there's more option. Idealizing meaning they're just thinking about it, but they have no intention, no desire. Then it's like, okay, you have more time to do things like getting them to a good therapist and things like that. But if it's right at crisis mode, I would say don't wait. If the person already has a plan and they have a date, time, and how it's going to be done, you really don't have the time to just sit there and wait for them to decide, okay, maybe I'll see a therapist. Because if a person is at that level where they've made the decision and they're getting ready to carry it out, future plans is really not a big part of their day. So it's time to intervene and get everything done right then and there. All right, I hope I've answered or clarified certain things. If you have any questions, again, always feel free to ask. All right, good morning, world. Have a good day.